you can see it in their eyes, how guilty they felt announcing that they were having kids. And my definition of success has greatly changed since my mum passed. Anything we did, it was life or death.
You've been through a lot. You've been through an awful lot. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the podcast. And today you're in for a treat. This guy is one of my first mentoring clients. Now, he worked for me many years ago. I trained him indirectly many times. But when he came to me and said, Spence, I want to build my business and I don't know how to use social media, I don't know how to create content, I jumped at the chance to offer him some help. Since then, he's gone on to create some phenomenal content that has really connected with the audience. His name is Joe Woodhouse, but he's so much more than content. The journey he's been on and the pain he has suffered will touch every single one of you. So let's tune into this episode, hear this journey about this lad from Sheffield, what he did to achieve greatness, the challenges he faced, and all of the heartbreak along the way. Cue the music. And lastly, thank you to Najahi Events, who have been sponsoring us now on the podcast for over a year. Najahi bring motivational speakers to the region to help inspire, educate, and motivate you to achieve better success and live a better life. God, it's a strange old situation having you sat here in front of me.
Watched a few of these before.
Let's for the benefit of everybody that's listening and watching this today, How long ago did I meet you?
2010, we first met.
So 13 years, right?
Yeah.
And 13 years ago, you came to work in an office that I was responsible for down in Abu Dhabi, and you'd just come out of the UK as a financial advisor with a bank. Is that right?
Yeah. I was 22 at the time.
Why don't you tell the story? I feel like when I tell it, it's
Honestly, or the honest version of the story? Or
I want you to be honest. That's probably the most important thing, is that you're honest.
Right, okay.
Just take us back to what do you do for a living, and how did you get into that industry?
I've been in financial services now for almost 19 years. So my background, I worked in retail banking with what was Lloyd's TSB at the time. And I moved out to the Middle East, moved out to Abu Dhabi in February 2010 to work for yours truly in the Abu Dhabi office. And I suppose the rest is history, as they say.
But you came out, moving out from Sheffield to anywhere in the UK is a big step, but then getting on a plane and coming to Abu Dhabi, a place probably you didn't know anything about.
Well, at the time, and this was just, the first F1 I think was 2010 in Abu Dhabi.
Right.
There'd not been an F1. It wasn't on the map like Dubai was back then.
Yeah.
And the amount of people where I said, I'm moving to Abu Dhabi, that went, is that in Wales? Like, no.
Hey, really?
Oh, yeah. No, that's Aberystwyth.
So when you turned up there the first time, had you been and checked it out before? Or when you moved there, was it your first?
It was my first time there, but I was quite lucky in the respect that John Green, so my old boss at the time, my line manager, I worked with John at the bank before, so I came out to work directly with John.
Yeah.
So I knew John, I trusted John, and he put me up for the first 6 or 7 months while I was living there as well. So I had a bit of a soft landing, really. So I had his arm around me a lot. But yeah, I'd never been to the place. It wasn't half as backward as I expected, I'll be completely honest.
Different to what you thought.
Yeah.
And you got stuck into it, and you had and you built a great career out of it along the way, which we'll talk about shortly. So you have got 3 kids.
I have.
Twins.
5. Yeah.
Twins, and and your wife Laura. So let's just talk about that for a minute, because you went on a bit of a journey to become a parent, and I'm sure along the way, being an expat, had all the challenges of being a husband as well along the way. You must have done, because most of us did, yeah?
Yeah, so I moved out in February 2010. Laura and I were together. We'd actually just bought our first house about 6 months before.
In England?
Mm-hmm. We just bought our first house, moved in, and then I got offered the job, which didn't go down very well initially. So the plan was I move out in February, sort of scope it out, make sure that I was going to stay. and then Laura was coming out later that year. So Laura eventually moved out in September. We then got married, I think 3 or 4 years after that, and then started trying to have children straight away, which didn't happen naturally for us. So after 2 years of trying, we went down. Well, we initially went to a clinic. Laura talked me into it. I didn't want to go at the time. Went to a clinic for us both to get tested because we didn't understand why we weren't falling pregnant. And it turned out I'd got a low sperm count and Laura had got a low AMH count, I think they call it. So basically how they described, how I understand it, is your chances of getting someone pregnant is low. Your chance of getting pregnant is low. Chances are slim to none. Put that together, sort of thing. So we started then going through IVF, which is an expensive hobby in the Middle East where there's no NHS, there's no financial support. You've got to pay for all of that yourself. And the boys, I've got twin boys, but it wasn't until the 5th round that Laura fell pregnant with the boys.
So five rounds of IVF, which is, difficult for women because of what they have to go through with the injections and stuff. How when you experienced that before the boys came along and before you got pregnant, what was it like as a journey?
We went into it with his eyes shut, just naively. We were kids. Well, we weren't kids. We were 20s, in his mid to late 20s at the time. But I went into it very naively with a view of, I pay X amount, £12,000, £13,000, whatever it was at the time, and we walk away with a baby. I never once got mentioned that it might not work. It never once got mentioned that it might not happen. It never once got mentioned that you might have to do this multiple times. And I think we both went into it with that. And then when we went through the procedure, well, more Laura than me, and then literally got a phone call from a receptionist saying, "Hey, it's not worked. Do you want me to book an appointment with Dr. I'll not say his name, but do you want me to book an appointment with Dr. X and come in and speak to him?" And he was just like, "What do you mean it's not worked?" And that were like a sledgehammer. And then just going again and again and again. The worst bit was, it just broke Laura every time we went through it. It was horrendous. Just being there. Yeah, it wasn't a pleasant experience, let's put it that way.
And when you went through it, do you feel that you went through it together, or do you feel that she went through it and it almost like you were an out-of-body experience, almost looking down at it? What was it like?
I felt a bit like a passenger on it, if I'm honest. They were just, I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what, other than, "Don't worry, it'll work, we can go again." And I just felt, I've never felt as helpless. So for me, I'm quite logical and quite pragmatic in that if you do A, B, C, and D, you get here. Like the quickest way from any two routes is a straight line. And I'm also I like to control the situation. I like to understand the situation. They may as well have been speaking to me in a foreign language. I had no idea what was going off. I had no idea what was good, what was bad, what was working, what wasn't. And every clinic we went to, it's as much sales as it is anything else, from my experience, is what I found.
Mm-hmm.
Where, the reason that's not worked is because of this. So let's do this extra test, then it'll work for X, Y, Z reason. Then it don't work again. I know why it's not worked. Let's do this test. And these tests are like an extra £5,000, £6,000 a throw every time. And I remember one of the clinics we went to, we had genetic testing done. So basically they test the embryos before they put them back in, so they work out which embryos are the best ones. I remember seeing this piece of paper. I think there were 4 embryos. And next to this piece of paper it said, boy, girl, girl, boy. And that was the first time for me that I realised that this is real. That they were babies, if you like. Well, embryos, but yeah, that were a big kick in the teeth.
So when you think about the emotions at the time, what because lots of people won't understand this. They won't have been able to get their head around it. They've never been on this type of journey. But what type of emotions did you feel on like a consistent basis, and what was Laura feeling?
I just felt numb to it really, but just guilt. So guilt of that the only thing that I was ever wanted is a family. From his first meeting, that was all she ever wanted. Not being able to feel like I was a big part of the reason why I couldn't provide that. So there was guilt there. There was, we were at an age, like we'd got a very good circle of friends as well. And I think we were the first to get married out of everyone. Then everyone got married a couple of years after that. But then everyone started falling pregnant. And it were like, obviously happy for them, but feeling sad for yourself at the same time. And feeling guilty for feeling that way. And you can tell people didn't want to tell you that they were pregnant. So what arguably should have been the happiest day of their lives, you could tell they dreaded telling us. That was hard.
Did you experience that with any people in particular?
Yeah, with everybody. As everyone's falling, like very close friends getting pregnant. And you can see it in their eyes how guilty they felt announcing that they were having kids when they knew we'd been going through all this. That was really tough.
So they must have been thinking, how on earth do we tell them?
Yeah. And I imagine they were sat at home having that exact conversation.
Yeah.
Hours.
How do we tell
Joe and Laura? You shouldn't, do you know what I mean? Like, guilt fell for that as well. That was hard.
Talk to me about your relationship with Laura, about the impact it had on the relationship. Did it make you stronger together? Did it push you apart? Was there, because instinctively human beings try and find a reason external to themselves that something doesn't work, as opposed to taking the responsibility on, and so that's just a natural step. Is that part of what you went through as well? Or?
I think it definitely it was very testing at the time. And also around that time, I was flying around the region for work. So I was away 3 or 4 days a week. And I do think we became quite distant looking back. But I think knowing what we know now, it probably made us a lot stronger. I mean, look, we're happier now than I think we're stronger now as well than we've ever been.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not just saying that, I mean that. And I don't know, like, if we'd not gone through that, would we be as good as we are now? I don't know. So in hindsight, I try and look for the blessing in it. I try and look for the blessing in every bad situation. And that's what I take from that.
And back then you were carrying a few kilos?
A few tens of kilos. Yeah.
So back at that point then, at your worst point around then, how much did you weigh at the...
120.
120
kilos.
And then how much did you lose?
I lost almost 40 kilo.
Wow. That's just incredible. Is that a third of your body weight you lost?
Like carrying a husky on my back.
Yeah. It is, isn't it? Yeah. You wonder how you could have carried that much weight, I suppose, when you...
I had this conversation was only the other week, actually.
I mean, I lose 5 kilos and I'm like, my God, I feel like light as a feather. I mean, I'm bouncing around, but 40 kilos. But did you feel really overweight at the time, or did you just feel normal?
No, I felt... So I boxed growing up as a kid. So I was super fit as a kid, and boxing's obviously a sport where you make weight.
Yeah.
Constantly watching my weight. Moved to Abu Dhabi at 22. And then, so stopped boxing when I was 21, moved to Abu Dhabi when I was 22. And then started boozing at the weekends. And then half a stone turned into a stone, turned into 2 stone. And then we got married. And I lost a load of weight for the wedding again. And then we went on a month-long honeymoon after we got married. I'll start back up again when I get back. And then it were leading up to Christmas. I'll start back up again in the new year. And then, but we're going on only in 3 months, so I'll start back coming after that. And then it just happened again, naturally, putting weight on, gaining more weight. And I think at that time, I naively just said to myself, I've done it once, I can do it again when I need to. Don't feel I need to yet. And then clothes start getting bigger. and then tailored suits stopped fitting, and then we started through all the IVF stuff. And when Laura got pregnant with the kids, that was when I went, I don't want to be a fat dad. I need to make a change. And then the boys were born, and the boys, we had a rough birth with the boys. They spent 2 weeks in NICU, which was hard. But then when they were in NICU, well, I'll start when they get home.
Hold on, I remember you telling me they had an illness of some sort, didn't they, when they were very young? Because you were doing research online about it. I think I was talking to you at the time. What was it called?
Pseudo-hypoaldosteronism.
Wow. The fact that you're from Sheffield and you can even say that.
I can't spell it, but...
and so the boys were born with this illness that you were trying to work on and get solved, and dealing with different doctors as well. So that must have been mega stressful as well.
Oh, very, yeah. So it's basically, it's this ultra rare salt wastage disease. The easiest way I understand it, and what one of the doctors said to me, he says, imagine diabetes is your body can't control blood sugar levels. This is like diabetes, but for salt levels. So the boys were born a month premature, and they lost loads of weight. So Jasper in particular lost a third of his body weight. And he were only 5 pounds he was less than 5 pounds when he were born. And they weren't putting weight on at all. They were feeding him through a drip. They weren't putting weight on. They were still losing weight, and they didn't understand why. And it took about 5 or 6 days before they even. And the only reason they found out. So one of the consultants in NICU, in neonatal intensive care, in the neonatal intensive care unit, he'd read this paper on this disease once. So he brought in a specialist. Spoke to the specialist, right, do this blood test, and this test. They did the test, and it turned out that they'd both got it. But what was really unique about it was that the boys were non-identical twins. So they're essentially 2 completely separate babies. Like 2 sperm, 2 eggs, 2 sacs, like Henry's got brown eyes, Jasper's got blue eyes. They're chalk and cheese. And the fact they both got it, that's what they couldn't get their head around. It's like the chances of getting it is 1 in 660,000, I think one of the doctors said. Yeah. And they said the fact they both got it is you have more chance of getting struck by lightning 3 times or winning a lottery 3 times in the same day. So there was that. And yeah, that was tough. So they were on steroids and salt in the milk. And
so you go through this huge amount of heartache and pain with IVF. It's not working. You don't know how to deal with it. It's a new experience for both of you. You then get the joy that she's pregnant, and then these 2 little rascals are about to come into this world. And so, big sigh of relief. It's like, yes, we're pregnant. We're going to have a baby. You then have the babies. They then get sick. So more stress for you then. That obviously has had an impact on your health as well, because you weren't living your healthiest life like everyone can see on camera right now, which I'm sure you're auditioning for Gladiators later on. He stopped here on the way to his audition in Hollywood. I don't know what role he's going for, but Schwarzenegger's getting a bit old now, so I think he might be replacing him. So what happened there? The boys obviously recovered from the illness. You went through some treatment with them, and you got them back on the straight and narrow, which was a big relief. And so then what was the next thing that came your way, which took the wind out of your sails?
From a health perspective?
From a life perspective.
So, yes, we went through that with the boys, and then we got the boys home, and then that was in 2018. And then in the summer of 2019, my mum got diagnosed with terminal cancer.
Terminal cancer? How old was your mum?
50. She was 56 when she died.
And what type of cancer did she have?
Breast cancer. And that was the final straw when I started getting my health in order.
So how long did you have your mum with you after she was diagnosed?
Less than 2 years. So you never met Aubrey, my daughter?
Your daughter. What kind of a grandmother was she like with your boys?
Oh, she worshipped them. but the only thing she ever wanted was a granddaughter. She didn't make that a secret from me being a young age, because there's no girls in the family. None.
Oh.
So she was good with first. Well, she is the first. My mum never met her.
What do you remember of your mum's relationship with her grandsons?
She just worshipped her. From the boys being born in June 2018, between then and her getting diagnosed with cancer, literally a year later, I bet she spent, bearing in mind we lived in Abu Dhabi and my wife and my mum lived in the UK and my mum worked, I bet she spent 3 months with them, solid. Like, she was forever out at hours. Second she got back, she's planning the next trip, booking the next trip. She just, she was mating with them. Really good.
Do you have brothers and sisters?
Pardon?
Do you have brothers and sisters?
Got a younger brother.
So both you and your brother, are you close?
Yeah.
And has he got kids as well?
Yeah, my brother's got a son.
Oh, there are boys everywhere, aren't there?
Mm.
When you look back at your time with your mum and you look back across your life and you think about your fondest memories, can you remember your first memories? I always think about this myself. Can you remember your first memories with your mum and mum?
I remember my 5th birthday party. That's probably my earliest memory.
Do you?
Yeah. But I had this conversation with her. I don't know if I can remember it or whether I've seen photos and I've made a story up in my head.
Yeah. See,
I remember cake. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle cake.
Mm.
And they got clowns, Bozo and I think they were called Bozo and Jeff or something like that. Clowns came round to the house.
I wonder, do you remember your first memory with your dad? Is that clearer?
Probably him taking me to Sunday football.
Okay.
Probably a bit older.
Because I'm just trying to think about it myself. And I remember my dad teaching me how to ride a bike. And I also remember we used to have stairs in our house where there wasn't a down bit, there were just the stairs. And I remember I got my head trapped between 2 of the stairs.
It explains so much. How long were you there for?
A week. They used to, if I would go to bed, and the only way I could watch TV is if I crept onto the stairs, and I used to stare between the gaps on the stairs at my dad watching TV in the living room. And one day I put my head through to watch and realised I can't get it out. You know when you have the carpet that kind of wraps around each step? But I remember that. But when I asked you about, do you remember, have you got a memory with your mum? I think about my mum, and I can't remember my first memory with my mum because she was just always present. Because that's what mums do. They're kind of always there. Whereas dads kind of like come in and out of your memories because they have significant moments like riding a bike or a birthday party and stuff like that. I was in my mum's arm. I was born at home. I wasn't even born in a hospital.
Oh, wow.
So it's mad when you think about it, but obviously we're all, well, I don't know about you, but I was definitely close to my mum, really close to my mum.
I remember mum's hair when I was very young. I mean, huge perm. Yeah. Huge perm and these huge Deirdre Barlow glasses.
Oh, did you?
Oh, yeah.
When you think about growing up and having a mum like that, what kind of a mum was she to you?
She was so loving. I was a nightmare as a kid, though.
Oh, I can imagine.
Now she's a teenager. My mum was very loving. Did everything for us. My dad was, I get my work ethic from my dad. Let's put it that way. My dad was a little bit harsh growing up, I think, with things.
Well, you worked for me for a few years. Your dad didn't work that hard then if you get it from your dad.
That's why I survived working for you, I think.
So as we think about those times in your life, you know, you've had this journey that you've been on. You've been, I mean, just from what you told me so far, you've been through a lot. You've been through an awful lot. But it's beautiful to see you now in the spirit that you've got and the success that you've had, and we'll talk about that shortly. But lastly, let's just finish on me understanding a bit more about your family, because I want to make sure I'm clear on it, because there's one person you don't ever talk about, and that's your dad. And I don't know why you don't talk about it, but I've known you for all these years, and I've never had a conversation with you about your dad. So just you say you've got the same work ethic as him. Tell me some more about him. What kind of a guy is he?
He's very... I get told a lot on my dad's carbon copy. My wife tells me that when we are arguing. My mum used to tell me that if I'd done something wrong. My dad's very headstrong, very argumentative, very aggressive.
Is that you?
Well, I think at times, yeah. So, look, my dad's a market trader. So my dad grew up on like one of the roughest council estates in Sheffield, and grew up with nothing. And he
wasn't in the full Monty, was he?
He wasn't. I actually had my 21st birthday party at the Shire Green Club where they filmed the full Monty, though. So we do know the place very well. But he just round the corner from that, funnily enough, on the flower estate. And so my dad, he bounced around a lot of jobs and started working on the markets when I think he was 20. And he did quite well for himself. Worked very, very long hours. And my dad's always had, and he says it out loud all the time, is if you're going to do something, you put 110% in, or don't bother. And that was something what he always tried instilling in me and my brother. So anything we did, it was life or death. Like, I used to box I played football first. And I remember we'd get home on a Sunday after football and he'd kick me out on the garden and lock the door. And because Billy Rowley could do 100 kick-ups, I could only do 20. So he'd make me spend 2 hours on the back garden doing kick-ups or kicking the ball against the garage for 2 hours before he let me back in the house.
Mm-hmm.
That was my dad. And he came from a place of love, but at the time I hated him for it. Like when I used to box, so part of the boxing training, just do your road work, which is basically get up in the morning and running. So my dad used to go to the markets at between 4 and 5 a.m. So he'd get me out of bed, kick me out of the house, lock the door, and my mum weren't allowed to let me back in until 6 to make me go and do my road work.
Mm-hmm.
That was my dad.
Tough love.
Yeah.
Tough love. I think a lot of dads have that kind of mentality, though, don't they? They don't know that they think it's soft if you're empathetic and compassionate and you listen. They probably only can teach in the way they were taught.
Yeah.
And often that kind of like moves down the line, doesn't it? And different kids react to it in different ways. If you see my two, I'm sure I only teach the way that I was taught as well. But one really reacts positively to it. And the other one's like,
yeah, same with me and my brother.
You don't care. Yeah, type of feeling, you know, why are you being so mean to me? Where the other one's like, yeah, I'll show you, Dad, you know.
Yeah.
And do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So which one was it, you or your brother that was the...
So I was pretty much 2 fingers up, F you attitude, as my brother would just roll over and just give into it.
Have you read David Coggins' book, Can't Hurt Me?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously that's much more extreme, but his childhood, you know, imagine living in that with him and his brother.
Oh, yeah.
You know, horrendous situation.
Yeah.
Right, let's talk about you and your career. So you're a financial advisor. You've been one for a long time. I know because you worked with me for a long time. Yep. But then you became a coaching client of mine. And how long ago was that?
That was... Laura was pregnant with the boys, so that would have been... Oh, was she pregnant or was it before? 2017, I think.
2017. So we're now nearly 6 years ago.
Yeah, 6, 7,
So you get some coaching advice from me about how you can do more business and all that normal stuff we do. And then we talk about social media.
Yep.
Okay. Let's produce some content. And I have this conversation with everybody I mentor, and everybody listens intently and makes notes and has great excitement while they're sat talking to me about what it's going to be like and what they're going to do. I know there's some fear in there as well. And many people, although promise to do it, might dip their toes in the water, but don't truly do it. And I think the industry of financial advice is such a fantastic example of that, isn't there?
Yeah.
You know, who's out there regularly creating content, teaching financial literacy, getting people to understand what's available to them. And I'd argue there are, in this country where we are right now, maybe one or two. Okay. In the UK, maybe 10 or 20, but not really anymore. What excited you about going on the journey of creating content? Is that a loaded question? Or
That's
what?
a very tricky question. You know that, because I hated it. So you said to me, you need to start making videos. And at the time, I felt I was massively overweight as well. So I didn't feel comfortable with myself. I wasn't confident. I didn't feel comfortable on camera. I hated every second of it. And you're the only reason that I did it and stuck with it, but I hated every minute of it. And I bet it took me probably 2 years of doing it before I started getting any glimpse of enjoyment out of it at all. And looking back, I don't know why I stuck it. Well, I do know why I stuck it at you, because I trust you explicitly. I always have done. And the fact you kept saying to me, they're getting better, you're going to get there, they're getting better, stick at it, keep doing what you're doing. Mm-hmm. Then you introduced me to a couple of other people, which I don't know if you paid them to say this, but they were then saying the same to me. And every bit of validation I ever got was either from you or from people associated with you.
Uh-huh.
And then I think one day the penny just clicked. And
did it one day? Was there a lead generated, or was there someone who inquired? Or one day someone said, "Oh, actually, that resonates with me." Did something happen like that, or did you just get comfortable with it and say, "This is"? I
just got more comfortable with it, and I also looked around at all the people that had in my industry in particular that had done it for a couple of weeks or a month, and then stopped doing it, and I just kept thinking, there was this niggling noise at the back of my head just saying, there's something in this. There's something there. And I kept doing it. But it took me 3 years to get a single lead of making content.
3 years to get a lead for making content? Really?
Not a deal, a lead. It took me 3 years to get a lead.
Wow. And you produce content all that time?
Yeah.
But you don't know who's watching it. That's the interesting thing, isn't it? You don't know who's watching it. Because I'm sure you get...
Funnily enough, the people that... most of the clients I've taken from it are not the ones you see on the comments.
Uh-huh.
The people that watch it quietly in the background and then send me a private message.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, let's talk about this content then, because it was pretty much producing content, teaching people about some basics of financial planning. One of the great videos you did was about Tom, Dom, and what was it? The three...
Oh, Tim, Tom, Dom.
Tim, Tom, and Dom. So the Tim, Tom, and Dom, and we did the property one. And I know that real estate brokers were asking you how that works, and you giving them advice on stuff they should know about, which I thought was fascinating. But you did this animated video, which I thought was just great. You know, you sat with a notepad and you drew some pictures out, and you animated a scene. Then you obviously told the story about how challenging it was going through the whole IVF journey and whatnot, which really, you know, connected people with the real person behind this content. And then the content has slowly got better and better and better. It's educational, and now it's become almost like I would say high quality production, lots of planning, great comedic satirical episodes poking fun at either the industry or people thinking that they can second guess or get rich quick or find another solution, which isn't the tried and tested path that you know only so well. So how did you get to that place where, or do you remember the time that you first brought humor into it?
Yes. So when I first started making the videos, I got a lot of backlash from people within my industry.
Yeah.
So-called friends and colleagues and peers and whatever you want to call them. And there wasn't much directly to me, but it was more indirect.
Yeah.
Where snide comments would be made and they'd get back to me.
Little digs.
Yeah. Yeah. He's embarrassing himself. He's embarrassing the industry. He's making a show of himself. Who does he think he is? All sorts of like just negative stuff. And you said something to me at the time, which was, and it's always stuck with me, which was, your opinion of me is none of my business. And I bet you said it to me 1,000 times. And
what you think of me is none of my business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was only when I really got my head around that I started making the content that I really want to make, which is, like I said, poking fun at things, which is bringing comedy into it, which is laughing at myself. Because I'm a strong believer, if you're laughing, if you're smiling, if you're enjoying what you are consuming or trying to educate yourself on, you're going to retain more information. So that's why I do it. And when I say it out loud, it's insane, because I was not making the content I want to create for fear of people in my industry judging me, when they're the only people that are never going to buy from me.
Yeah.
They're the only people that will never be my clients. And when I got my head around that, I think was when it went to another level.
And then now that content, as we see the comments online, you've got a fan base within the industry as well now.
Yeah.
You've got these people. I see the comments, I see the comments from people within the industry that are like, that's the funniest video you have made. Oh,
they're the same ones that were bitching about me.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah, I can imagine. Ones that were talking negatively about you now are going, that's fantastic. So you've come almost full circle. What do you think of those people that were prepared to put other people down, that were trying to find a way to develop their business? What do you make of those types of characters?
If it makes them feel better. So
there has to be, Joe, though, an element of
you. Oh yeah, there is. Don't get me wrong. Yeah.
Because it's so sweet, isn't it? His victory is so sweet, and it's like the success you've had by going down this path and persisting with it has demonstrated that absolutely you can make content and you can educate and inspire an audience of people so that they can take action and do the right thing with their money. Okay. But also show the whole industry that has been stuck in its ways for so long, that are so media shy, and think the only way of generating leads is to get on a phone and make a load of cold calls. Okay, that they're wrong, and that's not the only way. Would you agree?
Yeah, big time. And I do think there's more people now off the back of it. There are more people there are more people creating content. I do get more messages from people asking me how I do it, well, they don't want to know how I do it. It's more, so what does it generate? What business do you get?
What's the result?
Yeah. And I'll always help people with it. And I have this conversation with Ryan, who works for me. He's like, why do you tell people your secrets? I'm like, one, it's not really a secret. You can just copy what I do if they really wanted to. Secondly, I actually quite enjoy helping people. And thirdly, don't not be doing it within a month.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Because I say that about podcasts. There are thousands of podcasts, but when you actually start looking at podcasts and seeing how many episodes all these content creators, these podcast producers have actually made, there's loads of podcasts out there with 7 episodes.
Yeah.
Or 7 episodes, then a 3-month gap, and then another 7 episodes. But that consistency of producing the podcast week in, week out, like producing the content week in, week out, is what eventually gets you noticed, respect. And also, I mean, you can think about it from 2 points of view: helping other people, educating people with your financial advisory satirical videos, or generating business revenue. Either way, and as long as it's a win-win for everybody, that doesn't matter. But it's that consistency that makes the difference. How do you keep coming up with ideas? How do you keep being creative? I saw a video the other day. You're in a Superman outfit the other day. I've obviously seen you. I've seen you have naked showers. I've seen you eating a oat-free oatmeal, and I've seen you eating a healthy donut for breakfast. And I've also seen you having more cold showers and then doing yoga. So where do these ideas come from? Because really, for me, okay, there's an extra benefit for me, or an extra connection, because it's you that makes me laugh even more. But other people are looking at that, and and I talk to people in my company, and I'm like, "Have you seen his latest video?" And they're like, "Oh my god, I can't believe that one." Yeah, okay, all from a place of I could never do that. Yeah, but it's like you feel it. So where do these ideas come from?
Here, there, and everywhere. So I consume a lot of content myself from different industries, and I've got no shame in saying that I beg, borrow, and steal if I see a good fitness video that I like. It's very easy to adapt that to finance. If I see certain people I follow, such as like Alex Hormozy, I love his content. So everywhere I look, really, I try and find inspiration. And so if you go through my saved Instagram posts, there's hundreds of them, which I go through. I have a very set morning routine. I'm up very early in the morning. So I have a couple hours to myself every morning. I find for me, that's my most creative time. And I can sit for hours. I just love writing. I love writing out video ideas, content ideas, and
Write it
on my
and
either on my phone or
okay.
on my laptop. I use the Notes app, Apple, but I'd love writing. I find it like really sort of peaceful, calming, meditative, whatever you want to call it. But just me on my own in silence, just writing out ideas. I can come up with loads on the go.
Tell me about what advice you would give to people. Let's say someone came to you and said, look, Joe, I'm inspired by your work. I'd like to be a content creator. I'm in the same industry as you. Could you take me under your wing and teach me some stuff, or could you spare a couple of hours of your time? What tips and strategies would you give that person that came to you with vulnerability and you were willing to help? What would you tell them to do?
In terms of what to create?
Yeah, because most people don't even know where to start, do they? You know?
I would start with what are the main questions you get asked by your clients.
Okay.
So what do clients ask you? So when you're in a meeting, when you're on a call, when you're having catch-ups with your clients, or what's the regular feedback you get? What do people want to know? What are people struggling with? What are the main pain points that your clients are facing? And then think of topics around that, and then create content around that. I can sell's probably the wrong word, but I can sell the idea of budgeting and saving 1,000 different ways on my videos. But if you actually tear away if you go through my videos and look at the underlying, I bet I can write 10 videos on one subject by using different, I'm very visual and I like analogies as well. So I can use different analogies for different things. And you might watch the same video, but me saying it 10 different ways. And it might be the 8th or the 9th version of that, and me using a different analogy of X over Y before you go, that makes sense. So I try and explain things in different ways, which also comes up with more ideas.
I think you do that. I think you appeal to people that can understand your accent. Do you ever get people that are challenged by that? You speak really quickly, or you've got a strong Sheffield or Yorkshire accent? Do you really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. And do people say we need subtitles, or do people say, what kind of feedback do you get?
So I get somebody actually, what's it called? Someone sent me a link the other day. This is gospel truth. 2 days ago, because I screenshot and sent it to Ryan who works with me. Someone sent me a link the other day for a guy on YouTube called Dr. Eric someone, and he's a speaking coach.
No,
Honestly, I think you should watch his videos. Like, thanks for your positive feedback. I'll take it on board.
I've shared your videos with some people.
Yeah.
And Anna, my wife, she obviously thinks you're great, but she's got no idea what you're saying.
So when I get excited, and you know this, when I get excited, my speed of speech rapidly increases. And so I do have to rein myself in every.
You go quickly, you got a strong accent, but you also use slang from where you're from to go. And that slang is very relevant to you know, there's some noggins and bellends and that kind of stuff in there. But obviously I get it. It makes me laugh. And some other people must be sitting there going, what did he say? What was he meaning?
Yeah. Every now and again. So there's some days I have a videographer that I work with. He edits the videos. Other days it's just me with my camera, and I send it to Ryan who works for me, and Ryan edits them. Every now and then I'll get a phone call off Ryan. I can't put that in. Like, what do you mean? He's like, you can't say
that. I was on television today and I said the word damn. Okay, so I was on this quiz and I got a quiz question wrong and I went, oh, damn. Like that. They said, can we retake it, please?
Really?
Yeah. That was literally this morning. And I was like, they said, yeah, we're ultra careful, just don't want to offend anyone. And I said, damn, it's what stops water coming out. They're like, no, it isn't.
I was on a podcast about a month ago, and the girls phoned me before whose podcast it was. They said, just so you're aware, we're a family-friendly show, so no swearing. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. They're like, yeah, but we've watched some of your videos, Joe, and you can't swear. I'm like, no, I get it, but just no swearing at all. Am I that bad? Are you talking bollocks? Yeah. Swore me 3 times.
I know what it's like. So as we look at your journey and where you've been and where you've come, you've gone from No family, going through hell, creating a family. You've gone through some changes in your life with your health. You've gone on to lose an enormous amount of weight. I've never seen you in this kind of condition ever. And every time I see you, we saw each other just a few months ago, didn't we?
Yeah.
In London. You just keep getting better and better and better.
Thank you.
When we think about what the outcome is and what you want to achieve, what really is the outcome for you?
From a physical point of view?
I want to go from a life perspective. I want to know from a career perspective. I think about all that work that you're doing, and these things keep getting better and better. But is there a goal? Is there somewhere you're trying to go? Is there something you're trying to achieve? Do you want to be the best? And if you do, what's the best? If you want to be, what is it?
So I'm really big on setting myself 90-day goals. So I've actually got them all in my phone because I write them in notes and I sort of tick them off as I go along. So in terms of longer term planning, it's more a case of just really enjoying the journey. Like it's changed drastically over the last 2 or 3 years from what I wanted back then. And my definition of success has greatly changed as well since my mum passed. So before, my definition of success was chasing every lead. It was being the top advisor in my industry, winning every accolade, winning every award, doing everything I can, working every hour God send. And family had always been really important to me, but it was only when my mum passed away and I went through a very dark couple of months that I realised what's really important. So you put a lot of things in perspective for me.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, my definition of success is the school run. It's bath and bed the kids every night. It's not travelling for work every week like I used to do. It's going on holiday with Laura and the kids for a week and switching my phone off. I'm just being fully present in that moment. And that for me is a successful, happy life. Because before I was running myself into the ground before. And it just weren't sustainable at all. I wasn't healthy, wasn't looking after me body, I wasn't looking after me mental health. I was all over the place. And I didn't know where that was coming and going. And back then, I'd got these long-term goals. I'd got these long-term visions. And what I've found over the since my mum died really, last 2 years, is now focusing a lot more on what makes me happy, what I enjoy doing, being present with people that I love. So I set myself, I don't know if I answered your question yet. So I set myself quarterly goals on sort of 5 key areas. So my focus, finance, fitness, family, and fun.
Focus, finance, family, fitness, and fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every quarter.
So you have a 3-month goal every time on focus, finance, family, fitness, and fun. I'm trying to say that over and over so I remember it. Focus, finance, family, fitness,
5
and fun.
F's.
And they all have to be achieved every quarter. There's never...
Yeah, and I reset them every quarter. It'll be different every quarter. But like one of my focus goals, people laugh at when I tell them this. I love meeting new people.
Uh-huh.
So I set myself a quarterly target of meeting 90 new people every quarter.
Uh-huh.
Knowing the name, asking them the name, finding something out about them. I just love meeting new people and making...
So one person a day for 90 days?
Exactly what it is, yeah. Every day.
90 new people, no matter what type of person that is, meet 90 new people.
Yeah. Every quarter.
That's not a bad way. Why do you think that kids aren't taught financial planning, financial understanding, knowledge, not math, but how to balance a bank account, how to understand credit cards and stuff like that? Why do you think they're not taught that?
I think 2 things. One is it's just the way it's always been done. And second is I think the system's broken in that, look, all the school system, particularly in the UK, because that's where I'm from, the school system in the UK is tick boxes, okay? Because the Ofsted inspection team come in and they basically work out what determines what sort of budget a school gets is what mark they get at Ofsted. What determines what mark they get at Ofsted is the results of those exams at the end of year 11 when the kids graduate. So the kids are just taught to memorize and tick boxes. And so that's one. And the other thing is, I think it's lack of education with the teachers as well. So a lot of the worst people I've met are managing their own money are teachers. So they do need to bring someone in externally to teach the kids this sort of stuff.
But schools do change. Schools do bring in different principles, different rules, because we're going through the whole hoo-ha with every child allowed to be decided whether they're a he or a him or a she or a her. That didn't exist when I was a kid, and all this whole blooming non-binary and pronouns and garbage nonsense that exists with that. Schools have brought that in, so they do bring in things they think are important. Is there some bigger overseeing,
conspiracy theory?
Well, it's got Illuminati that want to keep kids as uneducated as possible so that they can keep them.
But who would benefit from that though? If it was that
population control.
But for what benefit?
Well, the government wants to control the population and make sure that people don't grow so that they can keep rounding them up, herding them up, making them do what they want them to do. Like all take a Moderna vaccine or a Pfizer jab. What's the UFC guy, Dana White? Dana White said, where's COVID? It was here last week. It's gone. Where did it go? Yeah. Where did it go? Yeah. And so I think that, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I do wonder, because it's absolute common sense to teach kids how credit cards work. It's common sense to teach kids how to budget. It's common sense.
What a mortgage is.
Yeah.
What tax is. What.
Yeah.
How to open a bank account.
Yeah.
How to run a bank account. Yeah.
That's like more important than teaching them a load of stuff that they learn in math that they'll only use a calculator for the rest of their lives anyway.
Exactly. And no matter what you do with life, guess what you need to manage?
Your money.
Exactly.
But then it's also the psychology of money as well. We talk about mindset around lots of things. The ability you've got to be able to lose the weight and build the muscle the way that you have is all to do with your mindset. We all know the practical thing is don't eat shit. Eat the right food and do the right exercise. But you have to be you have to have a belief system around that. You have to be committed to it because you believe it's going to work. And it's the same with money for me. It's like psychologically, because subconscious spend is what plays a massive role in people's lives. And now they've got their credit cards on their mobile phones. It's even worse. It's like tap, 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 tap. I did it yesterday. Tapped 4 times in an hour. And I was 1,500 dirhams out, It was gone.
Yeah.
And so it's very easy to go down that path because you don't think about the ramifications of those types of actions. You don't believe that it's going to cause you any harm, okay? Or you can't see the benefit of not doing it because your mind is not educated in the right way. So when I look at financial planners, it's like, what are we trying to achieve here? And should we all be committing to going and getting into community groups where there are families and young children, or even teenagers for that matter, and help them learn and understand? Because the banks used to do that. Because when I was a kid, I got an early starters bank account.
Yeah, we did when I was a kid.
Yeah, and I got from Lloyd's Bank. I got a gift of some sort, or whatever it was, and I got 30 quid in the account.
I got a big black horse's head.
Yeah, there you go. Something like that. I got a notepad or something stupid, a leatherette bound notepad.
Yeah.
And I've got this bank account. So, and the reason they wanted me to have the bank account is because one day down the road I was going to have some money, and I'm not going to change bank because it's easier not to.
Yeah.
So what responsibility do we have? Okay, you're out there, you're sending that message, you're teaching people about financial advice, but you're teaching that 35-year-old, you're teaching that guy that's gone, oh shit, I haven't done what I needed to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bought the house, I got the HP payments on the expensive car, I didn't buy the life insurance, bugger. That's the guy you're approaching. But what about these people here that don't need to become the 35-year-old that goes, darn it? Because you know as well as I do on your videos, compounding interest. Imagine compounding from 18 years old.
Yeah.
The power of that. The power of being a 16-year-old and saving a $5 a week for 50 years.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
I wonder what a $5 a week over 50 years is.
It'll be very interesting.
Am I giving you content ideas as we're talking about this?
You ought to be fair.
Yeah. But do you think that we have a responsibility in that industry?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. So what?
And it is actually something that I've been speaking to some friends of mine about in the UK who go around doing talks to schools, and it's something I need to do a lot more outreach for as well. So I do think it's really important.
Joe Woodhouse.
Mm-hmm.
What a journey. to see who you were all those years ago and to see where you were, where you've been, and what you've done along the way. I am mega, mega proud for you. I really am.
Thank you.
Okay, well done on every success that you've got. Okay, it was lovely to see your wife the other day and have a couple of drinks with her when we were in London. It was a bit mad bumping in at the same place at the same time to that thing. But anyway, look, I really appreciate you coming and sharing that story on the show today. Okay, and I hope that you go on and if you're not going to have Spider-Man or Superman, maybe are you going to be Batman next? Who knows?